Shalom, 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 everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Reading with Shilo, man. It's Shilo. I'll put the home book up. We done had a break, so it's time to make it shake, baby. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hello, all the newcomers, all the old folks. Come get up in here with those old folks. So, yeah, man, we're about to start a new book tonight. We're going to start a new book tonight. One I don't want to read. Oh, man, I've been dreading reading this book. But I'll go ahead and get it out the way. Go ahead and get it out the way. You never know. You never know. What they say, never judge a book by its cover. That's what they say. Even though God said the Most High say something different. But hey, we're going to get into it. The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. I've never read this. Never had no want to. So, but I'm going to force it down. And we're going to get into it and see if we can breeze through it. I'll move through it, see if there's something we can learn and grow from. See if it's as humbug as I thought it would be, or as I think it is. Or is there some validity to these 5 love languages? The secret to love that lasts. Humbug. Simple ideas, lasting love. Between busy schedules and long days, expressing love can fall by the wayside. We forget to compliment, to give gifts, just because, to linger in our embrace. The things that say "I love you" seem to either get said or not get through. This is a book about saving it and saying it and hearing it clearly. No gimmicks. No psychoanalyzing. I'm tripping. Just learning to express love in your spouse's language. Words of affirmation. Acts of service. Receiving gifts. Quality time. Physical touch. Oh, man. With over 10 million copies sold, The 5 Love Languages has transformed countless relationships. Its ideas are simple and conveyed with clarity and humor, making this book as practical as it is personable. You'll be inspired by real-life stories and encouraged by its common sense approach. Reading this book feels like taking a walk with the wise friend. Applying it will forever change your relationship starting today. We'll see about that, Mr. Gary Chapman. Damn. We're going to try to make it through 1, 2, and 3. We're going to try to make it through 1, 2, and 3 tonight. 3 being the longest out of the 3, but we'll see. The 5 Love Languages. Oh, man. Chapter 1. What happens to love after the wedding? What happens to love after the wedding? At 30,000 feet, somewhere between Buffalo and Dallas, he put his magazine in his seat pocket, turned in my direction, and asked, "What kind of work do you do?" "I do marriage counseling and lead marriage enrichment ceremonies," I said matter-of-factly. "I've been wanting to ask someone this for a long time," he said. "What happens to the love after you get married?" Relinquishing my hopes of getting a nap, I asked, "What do you mean?" "Well," he said, I've been married 3 times, and each time it was wonderful before we got married. But somehow, after the wedding, it all fell apart. All the love I thought I had for her and the love she seemed to have for me evaporated. I am a fairly intelligent person. I operate a successful business, but I don't understand it. How long were you married? I asked. The first one lasted about 10 years. The second time, we were married 3 years. The last one, almost 6 months. Did your love evaporate immediately after the wedding, or was it a gradual loss? I inquired. Well, the second one went wrong from the very beginning. I didn't know what happened. I really thought we loved each other, but the honeymoon was a disaster and we never recovered. We only dated 6 months. It was a whirlwind romance, and it really was exciting. But after the marriage, it was a battle from the beginning. In my first marriage, I had 3 or 4 good years before the baby came. After the baby was born, I felt like she gave her attention to the baby and I no longer mattered. It was as if I had one goal in life was to have it is as if her one goal in life was to have a baby. And after the baby, she no longer needed me. Did you tell her that? I asked. Yes, I told her. She said I was crazy. She said I did not understand the stress of being a 24-hour nurse. She said I should be more understanding and help her more. I really tried, but it didn't seem to make any difference. After that, we just grew farther apart. After a while, there was no love left, just deadness. Both of us agreed that the marriage was over. My last marriage, I really thought that one would be different. I had been divorced for 3 years. We dated each other for 2 years. I really thought we knew what we were doing. And I thought that perhaps for the first time, I really knew what it meant to love someone. I genuinely felt she loved me. After the wedding, I don't think I changed. I continued to express love to her as I had before marriage. I told her how beautiful she was. I told her how much I loved her. I told her how proud I was to be her husband. But a few months after marriage, she started complaining about pretty much about petty things at first, like my not taking the garbage out or not hanging up my clothes. Later, she went to attacking my character, telling me she didn't feel she could trust me, accusing me of not being faithful to her. She became a totally negative person. Before marriage, she was never negative. She was one of the most positive people I have ever met. That's one of the things that attracted me to her. She never complained about anything. Everything I did was wonderful. But once we got married, it seemed I could do nothing right. I honestly don't know what happened. Eventually, I lost my love for her. I began to resent her. She obviously had no love for me. We agreed that there was no benefit to our living together any longer, so we split. That was a year ago. So my question is, what happens to love after the wedding? Is my experience common? Is that why we have so many divorces in our country? I can't believe that it happened to me 3 times. And those who don't divorce, do they learn to live with the emptiness, or does love really stay alive in some marriages? If so, how? The questions my friend seated in 5A was asking are the questions that thousands of married and divorced persons are asking today. Some are asking friends, some are asking counselors and clergy, and some are asking themselves. Sometimes the answers are couched in psychological research jargon that is almost incomprehensible. Sometimes they are couched in humor and folklore. Most of the jokes and pithy sayings contain some truth, but they are like offering an aspirin to a person with cancer. The desire for romantic love in marriage is deeply rooted in our psychological makeup. Books bound on the subject Television and radio talk shows deal with it. The internet is full of advice. So are our parents and friends and churches. Keeping love alive in our marriages is serious business. With all the help available from social media, from media experts, why is it that so few couples seem to have found the secret to keeping love alive after the wedding? Why is it that a couple can attend a communication workshop, hear wonderful ideas on how to enhance communication, return home, and find themselves totally unable to implement the communication patterns demonstrated? How is it that we read something online on 101 ways to express love to your spouse? Select 2 or 3 ways that seem especially helpful. Try them, and our spouse doesn't even acknowledge our effort. We give up on the other 98 ways and go back to life as usual. The truth we're missing. The truth we're missing. The answer to those questions is the purpose of this book. It is not that the books and articles already published are not helpful. The problem is that we have overlooked one fundamental truth. People speak different love languages. My academic training is in the area of anthropology. Therefore, I have studied in the area of linguistics, which identifies a number of major language groups: Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, English, Portuguese, Arabic, Greek, German, French, and so on. Most of us grow up learning the language of our parents and siblings, which becomes our primary or native tongue. Later, we may learn additional languages, but usually with much more effort. These become our secondary languages. We speak and understand best our native language. We feel most comfortable speaking that language. The more we use a secondary language, the more comfortable we become conversing in it. If we speak only our primary language and encounter someone else who speaks only his or her primary language, which is different from ours, our communication will be limited. Which is different from ours. Excuse me, our communication will be limited. We must rely on pointing, grunting, drawing pictures, and acting out our ideas. We can communicate. I'm tripping. We must rely on pointing, grunting, drawing pictures, or acting out our ideas. We can communicate, but it is awkward. Language differences are part of and parcel of human culture. If we are to communicate effectively across cultural lines, we must learn the languages of those with whom we wish to communicate. In the area of love, it is similar. Your emotional love language and the language of your spouse may be as different as Chinese from English. No matter how hard you try to express love in English, if your spouse understands only Chinese, you will never understand how to love each other. My friend on the plane was speaking the language of affirming words to his third wife when he said, I told her how beautiful she was. I told her I loved her. I told her how proud I was to be her husband. He was speaking love and he was sincere, but she did not understand his language. Perhaps she was looking for love in his behavior and didn't see it. Being sincere is not enough. Is not enough. We must be willing to learn our spouse's primary love language if we are to be effective communicators of love. My conclusion for many years of marriage counseling is that there are 5 emotional love languages, 5 ways that people speak and understand emotional love. In the field of linguistics, a language may have numerous dialects or variations. Similarly, within the 5 basic emotional love languages, there are many dialects. The number of ways to express love within a love language is limited only by one's imagination. Oh, Lord, here we go. The important thing is to speak the love language of your spouse. Seldom do a husband and wife have the same primary emotional love language. We tend to speak our primary love language, and we become confused when our spouse does not understand what we are communicating. We are expressing our love, but the message does not come through before we are speaking because we are speaking what to them is a foreign language. Therein lies the fundamental problem, and it is the purpose of this book to offer a solution. That is why I dare to write another book on love. Once we discover the five basic love languages and understand our own primary love language, as well as the primary love language of our spouse, we will then have the needed information to apply the ideas in the book and articles. Once you identify and learn to speak your spouse's primary love language, I believe that you will have discovered the key to a long-lasting, loving marriage. Love need not evaporate after the wedding. But in order to keep it alive, most of us will have to put forth the effort to learn a secondary love language. We cannot rely on our native tongue if our spouse does not understand it. If we want them to feel the love we are trying to communicate, we must express it in their primary love language. Your turn. How does your spouse respond when you try to show affection? This was chapter 1. What happens to love after the wedding? Chapter 2. Keeping the love tank full. Keeping the love tank full, baby. Love is the most important word in the English language and the most confusing. Both secular and religious thinkers agree that love plays a central role in life. Love has a prominent role in thousands of books, songs, magazines, and movies. Numerous philosophical and theological systems have made a prominent place for love. Psychologists have concluded that the need to feel loved is a primary human emotional need. For love, we will climb mountains, cross seas, traverse desert sands, and endure untold hardships. Yep. That's a scripture too about many men have went out their wits for women. Man will rob and steal and plunder and bring it back to the woman he loves. For love, we will climb mountains, cross seas, traverse desert sands, and endure untold hardships. Without love, mountains become unclimbable, seas uncrossable, deserts unbearable, and hardship our lot in life. If we can agree that the word love permeates human society, both historically and in the present, we must also agree that it is a most confusing word. We use it in 1,000 ways. We say, I love hot dogs, and in the next breath, I love my mother. We speak of loving activities, swimming, skiing, hunting. We love objects, food, cars, houses. We love animals, dogs, cats, even pet snails. We love nature, trees, grass, flowers, and weather. We love people, mother, father, son, daughter, parents, wives, husbands, friends. We even fall in love with love. If falling is not confusing enough, we also use the word love to explain behavior. I did it because I love her. The explanation is given for all kinds of actions. A politician is involved in an adulterous relationship, and he calls it love. The preacher, on the other hand, calls it sin. The wife of an alcoholic picks up the pieces after her husband's latest episode. She calls it love, but the psychology calls it codependency. The parent indulges all the children's wishes, calling it love. The family therapist would call it irresponsible parenting. What is loving behavior? Hmm. The purpose of this book is not to eliminate all confusion surrounding the word love, but to focus on that kind of love that is essential to our emotional health. Child psychologists affirm that every child has certain basic emotional needs that must be met if he is to be emotionally stable. Among those emotional needs, none is more basic than the need for love and affection. The need to sense that he or she belongs and is wanted. When an adequate supply of affection, with an adequate supply of affection, the child will likely develop into a responsible adult. Without that love, he or she will be emotionally and socially challenged. I like the metaphor the first time I heard it. Inside every child is an emotional tank waiting to be filled with love. When a child really feels love, he will develop normally. But when the love tank is empty, the child will misbehave. Much of the misbehavior of the children is motivated by the cravings of an empty love tank. I was listening to Dr. Ross Campbell, a psychiatrist who specialized in the treatment of children and adolescents. As I listened, I thought of the hundreds of parents who had paraded the misdeeds of their children through my office. I had never visualized an empty love tank inside those children, but I had certainly seen the results of it. Their misbehavior was a misguided search for the love they did not feel. They were seeking love in all the wrong places and in all the wrong ways. I remember Ashley, who at 13 years of age was being treated for a sexually transmitted disease. Her parents were crushed. They were angry with Ashley. They were upset with the school, which they blamed for teaching her about sex. Why would she do this? They asked. In my conversation with Ashley, she told me her parents divorced when she was 6 years old. I thought my father left because he didn't love me, she said. When my mother remarried when I was 10, I felt she now had someone to love her, but I still had no one to love me. I wanted so much to be loved. I met this boy at school. He was older than me, but he liked me. I couldn't believe it. He was kind to me, and in a while I really felt he loved me. I didn't want to have sex, but I wanted to be loved. Ashley's love tank had been empty for many years. Her mother and stepfather had provided for her physical needs, but had not realized the deep emotional struggle raging inside of her. They certainly loved Ashley, and they thought that she felt their love. Not until it was almost too late. But they discovered that they were not speaking Ashley's primary love language. The emotional need for love, however, is not simply a childhood phenomenon. That need follows us into adulthood and into marriage. The in love experience temporarily meets that need, but it is inevitably a quick fix and, as we shall learn later, has a limited and predictable lifespan. After we come down from the high of in love obsession, the emotional need for love resurfaces because it is fundamental to our nature. It is at the center of our emotional desires. We need love before we fall in love, and we will need it as long as we live. The need to feel loved by one's spouse is at the heart of marital desires. A man said to me recently, "What good is the house, the cars, the place at the beach, or any of the rest of it if your wife doesn't love you?" Do you understand what he is really saying? More than anything, I want to be loved by my wife. Material things are no replacement for human, emotional love. My wife says he ignores me all day long and then wants to jump in bed with me. I hate it. She is not a wife who hates sex. She is a wife desperately pleading for emotional love. Our cry for love. Our cry for love. Something in our nature cries out to be loved by another. Isolation is devastating to a human psyche. This is why solitary confinement is considered the cruelest of punishments. At the heart of humankind's existence is the desire to be intimate and to be loved by one another. Marriage is designed to meet that need for intimacy and love. That is why the ancient biblical writings spoke of the husband and the wife becoming one flesh. That did not mean that individuals would lose their identity. It meant that they would enter into each other's lives in a deep and intimate way. Hmm. I agree, but I don't. I kind of agree, but I don't. But if love is important, it is also elusive. I have listened to many married couples share their secret pain. Some came to me because the inner act or the inner ache, had become unbearable. Others came because they realized that their behavior patterns or the misbehavior of their spouse was destroying their marriage. Some came simply to inform me that they no longer wanted to be married. Their dreams of living happily ever after had been dashed against the hard walls of reality. Again and again, I have heard the words, "Our love is gone. Our relationship is dead. We used to feel close, but now we no longer enjoy being with each other. We do not meet each other's needs." Their stories bear testimony that adults as well as children have love tanks. Could it be that deep inside hurting couples exist an invisible emotional love tank with its gauge on empty? Could the misbehavior, withdrawal, harsh words, and critical spirit occur because of that empty tank? If we could find a way to fill it, could the marriage be reborn? With a full tank, would couples be able to create an emotional climate where it is possible to discuss differences and resolve conflicts? Could the tank be the key that makes marriage work? These questions sent me on a long journey. Along the way, I discovered the simple yet powerful insights contained in this book. The journey has taken me not only through years of marriage counseling, but into the hearts and minds of hundreds of couples throughout America. From Seattle to Miami, couples have invited me into the inner chamber of their marriages, and we have talked openly. The illustrations included in this book are cut from the fabric of real life. Only names and places are changed to protect the privacy of the individuals who have spoken so freely. I am convinced that keeping the emotional love tank full is as important to a marriage as maintaining the proper oil level is to the automobile. Running your marriage on an empty love tank may cost you even more than trying to drive your car without oil. What you are about to read has a potential of saving thousands of marriages and can even enhance the emotional climate of a good marriage. Whatever the quality of your marriage now, it can always be better. Warning: understanding the five love languages and learning to speak the primary love language of your spouse may radically affect his or her behavior. People behave differently when their emotional love tank is full. Before we examine the five love languages, however, we must address one other important but the confusing phenomenon: the euphoric experience of falling in love. Your turn. On a scale of 0 to 10, how full is your love tank? That was chapter 2. Keeping the love tank full. Chapter 3, falling in love. Falling in love. She showed up to my office without an appointment and asked my assistant if she could see me for 5 minutes. I had known Rachel for 18 years. She was 36 and had never married. From time to time, she had made appointments with me to discuss a particular difficulty in one of her dating relationships, particular difficulty in one of her dating relationships. She was by nature a conscientious or conscientious, caring person. So it was completely out of character for her to show up at my office unannounced. I thought there must be some terrible crisis for Rachel to come without an appointment. I told my assistants to show her in, my assistant to show her in, and I fully expected to see her burst into tears and tell me some tragic story as soon as the door was closed. Instead, she practically skipped into my office, beaming with excitement. How are you today, Rachel? I asked. Great, she said. I've never been better in my life. I'm getting married. You are, I said. To whom and when? His name is Ben, she said. We're getting married in September. That's exciting. How long have y'all been dating? 3 weeks. I know it's crazy, Dr. Chapman. After all the people I've dated and the number of times I came so close to getting married, I can't believe it myself. But I know Ben is the one for me. From the first date, we both knew it. Of course, we don't talk about it on the, of course, we didn't talk about it on the first date or the first night. But 1 week later, he asked me to marry him. I knew he was going to ask me. I knew I was going to say yes. I've never felt this way before. You know about the relationships that I've had throughout the years and the struggles I've had. In every relationship, something's not right. I never felt at peace about marrying any of them, but I know that Ben is the right one. By this time, Rachel was rocking back and forth in her chair, giggling and saying, I know it's crazy, but I'm so happy. I've never been this happy in my life. What has happened to Rachel? Has she fallen in love? In their mind, Ben is the most wonderful man she has ever met. He is perfect in every way. He will make the ideal husband. She thinks about him day and night. Shit. The fact that Ben has been married twice before, has 3 children, and has had 3 jobs in the past year are trivial to Rachel. She's happy, and she is convinced that she is going to be happy forever with Ben. She is in love. Most of us enter marriage by the way of in love experience. Most of us enter marriage by way of the in love experience. Ooh-wee. We meet someone whose physical characteristics are and personality traits create enough electric shock to trigger our love alert system. The bells go off, and we set in motion a process of getting to know the person. The first step may be sharing a hamburger or a steak, depending on our budget. But our real interest is not the food. We are on a quest to discover love. Could this warm, tingly feeling I have inside be the real thing? Sometimes we lose the tingles on the first date. We found out we find out that he spends time on crackpot websites, or she attends 6 colleges, and the tingles run out of our toes. We want no more hamburgers with them. Our other times, however, the tingles are stronger after the burger than before. We arrange for a few more together experiences, and before long, the level of intensity has increased to the point where we find ourselves saying, I think I'm falling in love. Eventually, we are convinced that it is the real thing, and we tell the other person, hoping the feeling is reciprocal. If it's not, things cool off a bit, or we redouble our efforts to impress and eventually win the love of our beloved. When it is reciprocal, we start talking about marriage because everyone agrees that being in love is a necessary foundation for a good marriage. The afternoon, the the anteroom of heaven. The anteroom. What is an anteroom? Let's see. The anteroom. Anteroom. I didn't think I was going to have anything to look up in this book, honestly. Anteroom. Anter. Anteroom. Anteroom. Antedate, antelope, antenna. Anteroom. Anteroom. It's not in there. Let's check the other one. Anteroom. Antelope. Anteroom. It is a word. It is a word. And I lost it. There it goes. Anteroom. An outer room that leads to another room, and that is often used as a waiting room. Okay, so the waiting rooms of heaven. Anteroom. The waiting room of heaven. Just in case. At its peak, the in love experience is euphoric. We are emotionally obsessed with each other. We go to sleep thinking of one another. When we rise, that person is the first thought on our minds. We long to be together. Spending time together is like playing in the anteroom of heaven, in the waiting room of heaven. When we hold hands, it seems as if our blood flows together. We could kiss forever if we didn't have to go to school or work. When we embrace, time seems to stop. The person who is in love, we'll call her Jen, has the illusion that her beloved is perfect. Her best friend can see the flaws. It bothers her how he talks to Jen sometimes, but Jen won't listen. Her mother noted the young man seems unable to hold a steady job, keeps her concerns to herself, but asks polite questions about Ryan's plans. Our dreams before marriage are of marital bliss. We are going to make each other supremely happy. Yeah. Of course, we're not totally naive. We know initially, we know intellectually, my bad. We know intellectually that we will eventually have differences, but we are certain that we will discuss those differences openly. One of us will always be willing to make concessions, and we will reach agreements. Hmm. It's hard to believe anything else when you are in love. We have been led to believe that if we are really in love, it will last forever. We will always have the wonderful feelings that we have at this moment. Nothing could ever come between us. Nothing will ever overcome our love for each other. We are caught up in the beauty and charm of the other's personality. Our love is the most wonderful thing we have ever expressed. We observe that some married couples seem to have lost that feeling, but it will never happen to us. Maybe they didn't have the real thing. We reason. Maybe they didn't have the real thing, baby. Unfortunately, the eternality. Unfortunately, the eternality of the in love experience is fiction, not fact. The late psychologist Dr. Dorothy Tenner conducted long range studies on the in love phenomenon. After studying scores of couples, she concluded that the average lifespan of a romantic obsession is 2 years. Oh man, that's not long at all. If it is a secret love affair, it may last a little longer. Eventually, however, we all descend from the clouds and plant our feet on earth again. Our eyes are opened, and we see the warts of the other person. Her endearing quirks are now merely annoying. His sharp sense of humor now wounds. Oh man, that's when I. Or it's all fun and games till it's every day. It was funny yesterday. His sharp sense of humor is now wounds. Those limp bumps were overlooked when we were in love, now become huge mountains. Reality intrudes. Welcome to the real world of marriage, where hairs are always on the sink and little white spots cover the mirrors. Oh Lord. Where discussions center not on where should we eat tonight, but didn't you get the milk? It is a world where bills and in-laws and jobs and children all clamor for our attention. A world where routine and resentment can silently eat away at the love we once had. In this world, a look can hurt and a word can crush. Intimate lovers can become enemies and marriage a battlefield. What happened to the in love experience? Alas, it was but an illusion by which we were tricked into signing our names on a dotted line, for better or for worse. Excuse me, my bad. No wonder so many have come to curse marriage and the partner whom they once loved. After all, if we were deceived, we have the right to be angry. Did we really have the real thing? I think so. The problem was faulty information. The bad information was the idea that the in love obsession would last forever. We should have known better. A casual observation should have taught us that if people remained obsessed, we would all be in serious trouble. The shock waves would rumble through business, industry, church, education, and the rest of society. Why? because people who are in love lose interest in other pursuits. That is why we call it obsession. The college student who falls ahead over heels in love sees his grades tumbling. It is difficult to study when you are in love. Tomorrow you have the test on the War of 1812. But who cares about the War of 1812? When you're in love, everything else seems irrelevant. A man said to me, Dr. Chapman, my job is deteriorating. What do you mean? I asked. I met this girl, fell in love, and I can't get a thing done. I can't keep my mind on my job. I spend my day dreaming about her. The euphoria of the in love state gives us the illusion that we have an intimate relationship. We feel that we belong to each other. We believe we can conquer all problems. We feel altruistic towards each other. As one young man said about his fiancee, I can't conceive of doing anything to hurt her. My only desire is to make her happy. I would do anything to make her happy. Such obsession gives us the false sense that our egocentric attitudes have been eradicated and we have become sort of a Mother Teresa, willing to give anything for the benefit of our lover. The reason we can do that so freely is that we sincerely believe that our lover feels the same way towards us. We believe that she is committed to meeting our needs, that he loves us as much as we love him, and would never do anything to hurt us. That thinking is always fanciful. Not that we are insincere in what we think and feel, but we are unrealistic. We fail to reckon with the reality of human nature. By nature, we are egocentric. Our world revolves around us. None of us is totally altruistic. And the euphoria of the in love experience only gives us that illusion. Once the experience of falling in love has run its natural course, remember, the average in love experience lasts 2 years. We will return to the world of reality and begin to assert ourselves. He will express his desires, but his desires will be different from hers. He wants sex, but she is too tired. He dreams of buying a new car, but she flatly says we can't afford it. She would like to visit her parents, but he says, I don't like spending so much time with your family. Little by little, the illusion of intimacy evaporates, and the individual desires, emotions, thoughts, and behavior patterns assert themselves. There are two individuals. Their minds have not melded together, and their emotions mingled only briefly in the oceans of love. Now the waves of reality begin to separate them, like the Red Sea. They fall out of love, and at that point, either they withdraw, separate, divorce, and set off in search of a new in love experience, or they begin the hard work of learning to love each other without the euphoria in the in love and the in love obsession. Some couples believe that the end of the in love experience means they only have two options: resign themselves to a life of misery with their spouse, or jump ship and try again. Our generation has opted for the latter, whereas an earlier generation often chose the former. Before we automatically conclude that we have made the better choice, perhaps we should examine the data. The divorce rate for second marriages is higher than the divorce rate for first marriages. The divorce rate in third marriages is higher still. Apparently, the prospect of a happier marriage the second and third time around is not substantial. From in love to real love. Research seems to indicate that there is a third and better alternative. We can recognize the in love experience for what it was, a temporary emotional high, and now pursue real love with our spouses. That kind of love is emotional in nature, but not obsessional. It is a love that unites reason and emotion. It involves an act of the will and requires discipline. And it recognizes the need for personal growth. Our most basic emotional need is not to fall in love, but to be genuinely loved by another. To know a love that grows out of the reasons and the choices, not instinct. I need to be loved by someone who chooses to love me, who sees in me something worth loving. That kind of love requires effort and discipline. It is the choice to expand energy. Let me make sure I'm reading that correctly. It is the choice to expand energy in the effort to benefit the other person, knowing that if his or her life is enriched by your effort, you too will find a sense of satisfaction. The satisfaction of having genuinely loved one another or loved another. It doesn't require the euphoria of the in love experience. In fact, true love can't begin until the in love experience has run its course. We cannot take credit for the kind of generous things we do while under the influence of the obsession. We are pushed and carried along by the instinctual force that goes beyond our normal behavior patterns. But if, once we return to the real world of human choice, we choose to be kind and generous, that is real love. The emotional need for love must be met if we are to have emotional health. Married adults long to feel affection and love from their spouses. I don't know, my nose is itching like crazy. Married adults long to feel affection and love from their spouses. We feel secure when we are assured that our mate accepts us, wants us, and is committed to our well being. During the in love stage, we felt all those emotions. It was heavenly while it lasted. Our mistakes was in thinking that it would last forever, but that obsession was not meant to last forever. In this textbook of marriage, it is but the introduction, the heart of the book of rational, uh, volitional, volitional love. What is volitional? I've never heard that one either. Volitional, rational, volitional love. VOLITIONAL. VOLITI VOLITIONAL. No, no, we got one page left. Volitional. Volitional. Volition. Volitional. 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 The exercise of one's will. The ability to use one's will. Volitional love. The heart of the book is rational, volitional love. The ability to use one's will. The rational, the ability to use one's will love. Volitional love. That is the kind of love to which the sages have always called us. It is intentional. That is good news to the married couples who have lost all. That is good news to the married couples who have lost all of their in love feelings. If love is a choice, then they have the capacity to love after the in love obsession has died and they have returned to the real world. That kind of love begins with attitude, a way of thinking. Love is an attitude that says, I am married to you and I choose to look out for your interests. I don't think a lot of women believe that shit anyway. Then the one who chooses to love will find appropriate ways to express that decision. But it seems so sterile, some may contend. Love is an attitude with appropriate behavior. Where are the shooting stars, the balloons, the deep emotions? What about the spirit of anticipation, the twinkle of the eye, the electricity of a kiss, the excitement of sex? What about the emotional security of knowing that I am number one in his or her mind? That is what this book is all about. How do we meet each other's deep emotional need to feel love? If we can learn that and choose to do it, then the love we share will be exciting beyond anything we ever felt when we were infatuated. For many years now, I have discussed the five emotional love languages in my marriage seminars and in private counseling sessions. Thousands of couples will attest to the validity of what you are about to read. My files are filled with letters from people whom I have never met saying, a friend loaned me one of your DVDs on love languages, and it has revolutionized our marriage. We had struggled for years trying to love each other, but our efforts have missed each other emotionally. Now that we are speaking the appropriate love languages, the emotional climate of our marriage has radically improved. When your spouse's emotional love tank is full and he feels secure in your love, the whole world looks bright and your spouse will move out to reach his highest potential in life. But when the love tank is empty and he feels used but not loved, the whole world looks dark and he will likely never reach his potential for good in the world. In the next five chapters, I will explain the five emotional love languages and then in chapter 9, illustrate how discovering your spouse's primary love language can make your efforts at love most productive. Your turn. Can you pinpoint a time in your marriage when reality set in? How did this affect your relationship, for better or for worse? That was chapter 3. That was chapter 3, falling in love. Falling in love. And we are there. That was the start of the five love languages by Gary Chapman. We are on chapter 3. I'm trying to read it unbiasedly, but I'm very biased. I'm very biased in this reading. But I'm still trying to give it a shot. We are on chapter 3. My nose itch. We're on chapter 3. It has 13, but you could really say 14 chapters. Let me see. Let me see what the questions at the back say. Frequently asked questions. Yeah, I could read those too. I'll read that. Hmm. Yeah, about 14 chapters. It says 13, but it has a little bit more. I'll just go ahead and add that and say 14 chapters. So, shit, man, we already. What page is this? We're already 37 pages into the book. 37 pages into the book. We're gonna keep going, see what we can learn and grow from Mr. Chapman. We're gonna see. I hear so much about this book. There's so many women speak on the love languages and stuff like that, but I don't really believe they believe that stuff themselves, man. They be switching their love languages. One month, one relationship they might be words of affirmation. Another relationship they want to receive gifts. Another relationship they want quality time. They be jumping back and forth. But and how many people have given? They'll say this and they've gotten that, and that marriage don't last. Or they'll say they this and they get that, and that ain't really what they really wanted. So I don't really believe in. Not to say it's not something we can't learn, though. It's not to say it's not something I can't learn. So I'm trying to take it, see what I can extract from it. What can I extract? And just to get it out of the way, so I can go ahead and mold on through to the next books on the shelf. Pull another one off the shelf and put this one back. Put it back. Oh man. But anyway, man, as I started the next book, we'll keep pushing. Hopefully, catch you on the replay, like, comment, subscribe, tell your people. Until next time, man, Shilo. Let's keep pushing, see what we can learn and grow from these books and actually apply it to our lives. Apply the stuff that you wanna grab on to apply that, man. But shalom. Till next time.